Hey everybody, I'm Jay.
And I'm Tracy, and together we lead the South Orange County Church.
I want to welcome you to our Connect video series where we talk and we try to make connections with God and with ourselves, with others. We spend this time each week talking about something that Jesus said or did or something that his followers said or did, and we try to see what we can learn from that. And we love to just talk about it with one another and discuss it. And we believe that by doing that, it really helps us to find some answers and find some peace in this crazy life.
And one of our core convictions as a church is that it's good to start each week by setting aside time to be with God and his people.
Yeah.
So this weekend all over South Orange County, we have tons of small groups. Maybe not tons, but we have small groups all over the area that are meeting to talk about the things that we're going to talk about today.
Yep. So let's get started today. Grab a cup of coffee and we'll jump in. All right, well, welcome back. So it is October and we are headed into the last part of the year, if you can believe it, which I just think is so bizarre. But time just keeps going by and it keeps moving. But so many cool things have been going on. And last week we actually, Tracy and I got to spend time with the teens. We
Playing werewolf, of course.
We played some very wholesome games.
It was so fun.
We did not teach them anything about lying or being deceptive, but we actually had a really good time with them, and we're excited actually because coming up this weekend we've got our youth ministry event on Sunday, which is going to be cool, and we're going to be spending time in our new teen lounge. We're getting the teen lounge. If you haven't seen it, you got to stop by sometime. Cool. But we're getting there, just one step at a time. But we're getting the teen lounge built up, and we're going to have a great discussion with the teens this week. Kind of about gender roles in the Bible and what does that look like and what does that mean for them within the context of our church. And so we're looking forward to that. That's going to be really cool. Yeah. Just so many other things that are coming up over the next few weeks that are going to be great. On October the 23rd, Marty Solomon is going to be here from Baymont Discipleship. I am too. I cannot wait to meet him and talk with him and learn from him. So that's going to be on Saturday night, October 23rd. So you definitely want to register and get your spot reserved if you haven't already. Then on that Sunday, October 24th, we're going to have a combined service with the Central and the Coastline Ministries on that Sunday morning. So we will be at the building that Sunday morning. We will not be meeting in small groups that week. There will not be a Connect video. We're going to be there that Sunday morning listening to Marty Solomon preach on that day, and that's going to be really awesome. Yeah. I'm excited about that. Now, this Saturday night event that he's doing, I think you want to bring your friends to this. Yes. So don't just go, oh yeah, it's something else on my calendar. Look at this as an opportunity to invite somebody to come and hear something that's going to be really helpful, I think. And we've asked Marty to speak on Genesis 1, and just the idea of trusting the story and how God from the very beginning has been writing this great story and inviting us into it. And so it's going to be something that you want people to come to. So I really want to encourage you to bring people to that. And then we also wanted to remind you about our marriage retreat. That's coming up on November 12th, 13th, and 14th. And it's going to be up at the Universal Hilton. It's going to be awesome. The Shapiros are going to be here. And I can't tell you how excited I am for what they are going to do for our marriages. And so I really want to encourage you to register for that and book a room up there and go. If you want to get the discount on the room, though, you only have until this Wednesday, October the 13th. So you need to do that ASAP. Go to our Weekly Wave email and you'll find the link to register. But you need to do that if you want to get a discount on the room. And so please do that. It is going to be an incredible time. And I'm really proud of all of our small groups that are doing our Making Marriage Simple class right now. And every week reading the chapters, getting into it, learning the stuff, having the discussions. I'm hearing so many good things from people, who maybe even at the beginning weren't that excited about it or didn't maybe think it was going to be that helpful for them. But now that they're really giving it a chance of getting into it, God is working through it. and he always does that. So
Yeah,
I'm really excited about that, and I'm proud of all of us. I know that Mary's group, that is the 1,000 Gifts group that is happening, is getting a ton out of that and learning that. And so there's just a lot of great things happening right now, and I'm really excited about that.
It's a good time to be in South Orange County.
It is a good time. Well, is there a bad time to be in South Orange County? I don't think so.
But it's a good time right now.
So we're really excited about that, and then all of that is going to lead us into the end of November, and that begins our Advent celebration. So the 4 Sundays before Christmas, starting on November, I think it's 28th, we will be meeting at the building at 4:30 on Sunday afternoons to have an Advent celebration where we're going to celebrate the coming of Jesus together. Except for December 4th, where we're meeting on Saturday, because Jason and Mabel are getting married on December the 5th. So I just wanted to remind everybody of that. I don't want them to get confused.
I know, I think it is.
I have to say Sundays, but then it's except for that one.
Except for that one.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and Jason and Mabel are getting married, which is really awesome. I'm
so
super excited for them. So that's going to be cool. So all of this is going on. There's so many great things, and I just really want to thank all of you who are just really doing your best to try to follow the Spirit. Like, what is God doing? You know, since we got here last year, we spent quite a bit of time just trying to even identify, like, okay, what are the things that can sometimes stop us from experiencing the life that God wants for us? So we talked a lot about grief and about pain from the past and letting go of expectations and being able to do that. And then at the beginning of the year, we spent a lot of time looking at some of these things that can sometimes, you know, trigger us, different words and concepts, whether it's leadership or discipleship or evangelism. And these things, you know, we have a past with some of these concepts and words, but we want to find what God really wants for us in those ways. And so, you know, we really have asked you over the last year to be honest and to be courageous in looking at what happens inside your heart when things come up. And we've really asked you to address some of those things and have the courage to maybe do some things differently. And I've been so encouraged because so many of you have.
Yep.
And you've responded in such a faithful way and said, okay, I will look into this and I will engage this. And I'm really proud of all of us, and I'm really grateful for that. You know, as God continues to lead us into the rest of the year, and then, you know, we've been praying a lot about 2022 and some of the things that we really want to be able to grow in along the way. But I think one of the things that God is just reminding us all the time is that he wants us to be like Jesus was. And so these last few weeks, we've been talking a lot about learning to be with Jesus, being his apprentice, and being able to follow him. And as we learn to be with Jesus and spend that time with him, you know, last week we talked about, you know, practicing and going after some of these practices. Because sometimes you find that, you know, you think that you want to do something well, but maybe you just haven't practiced enough to be able to do it well. So you have to put it into practice. I had my piano tuner here at the house yesterday tuning my piano. And he's a great player, and so he'll sit down and play some, you know, pieces as he's listening for the tuning of the piano. But then he wants me to sit down and play it so that I can see how it sounds. And so there's certain things that I can play, but then I started playing a Beethoven piece, and I know this piece, but I haven't practiced this piece in a while, you know. And I also haven't practiced my scales in a while. We were talking about scales last week, and so my hands are a little thick. It feels like, you know, I don't know. They get to where they feel really thick, and I can't move them, you know, super well. And so I was trying to play this really soft, beautiful passage, and at the same time, he and I both started laughing because of the way that it sounded. And I looked at him and I was like, yeah, I don't think that's something that the piano could fix. Because it was obvious that my hands just could not produce the sound that was required in the moment. But it just reminded me that that's what practice does. When we daily practice and we work on things, then it becomes easier and easier for us to do that. And that's, even following Jesus is that way. These things that we put into practice, our intentional time with God, our prayer life, our scripture memorization. In our small group last week, there was a big chunk of us that were like, I really want to work on memorizing more scriptures again. And so I've encouraged everybody to do that. So hopefully you found something that you could be working on and putting into practice this week, right?
Exactly. Yeah, so we've talked about being with Jesus. We talked about practices that help us to feel his presence. And then we talked about becoming like him by
Right.
putting those things into practice. And so today we want to talk about doing what Jesus did.
Right.
So, you know, both of those things are so important. They lead us to try to do what Jesus did while he was here and wants us to do now that we're here.
Right. Right.
So,
You know, you remember that the WWJD guy.
Yes.
We
What would
have the
Jesus
bracelets
do?
that say what,
Yes.
what would Jesus do? Which is actually a brilliant question. I think it's really good. But we were reading a book lately by John Mark Comer, and he talks about in there that maybe a more helpful or thoughtful question is, what would Jesus do if he were me?
right.
If he were,
If he had my job.
If he had my job.
If he had my kids, if he had my situation,
He was
if
a middle-aged
lived in
pastor
21st
living
century
in Southern
America.
California.
Yes.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
4 kids.
So what would it look like if he lived now?
Right. And that's why we're talking about the lifestyle that Jesus lived, not the, living around the Sea of Galilee or being a fisherman or being a carpenter, not that kind of lifestyle, but the lifestyle of spending time with God, the lifestyle of memorizing scripture, the lifestyle of doing everything you can to be connected with God, and then do the work that God has set out for you to do. And, so as we talk about learning to be like Jesus here in South Orange County in 2021, in this church that we are in, we know absolutely that what Jesus wants to do and would want us to do and would do if he were us is to help other people know that God is awesome and help people see the truth in the Bible and help them to become right with God. And we know that that's what Jesus would do, and that's what he wants us to do. And even though we know it, sometimes it is difficult for us to actually put that into practice.
Oh my gosh, I am so rusty. That's
Right.
what I was thinking. Like, I was just thinking, oh my gosh, I just thought this would be so much easier,
Right.
to reach out to people. Oh, and I just realized I'm just so rusty. I don't know, 2020, going through all the stuff and moving and all that. I just feel like I'm out of shape, just like you trying to play that piece.
Right.
And like I was trying to put together this thing for a pumpkin party, okay, because it's October, and
It's October.
traditionally in our family for years we have had an annual pumpkin carving party. And we've just done it every single year to where it became almost like clockwork. And we would always invite our neighbors. We would we'd always tell our kids, invite your friends from school. And it would really be a pretty big evangelistic event for us every
Right.
fall. And invariably we would meet new people, and new people would come to church, and new people would study the Bible. So this year I'm like, I'm going to put together our pumpkin carving, Oh my gosh, it's been so difficult of just to find the date. And,
Right.
first we were trying to do it with our whole group, but then, life happens to our group. And then I was like, well, maybe I'll do one on my own. And then trying to find the date for that. And then I made my little invitation, but then I couldn't find any paper. So
Pumpkin paper, because if you're going to
Pumpkin
do a
paper.
pumpkin party, you have to print it on pumpkin paper.
anyways, it's just so, I found myself to be so out of shape in this area. So
Well, and it's so easy to get going on the life that we have, because
Yeah.
there's plenty of life to do every day when you get up.
exactly, you have to
And-
be intentional with this thing.
You do.
Yeah.
But yet this is the thing that is the most important to the heart of God, is bringing people into relationship with him. And so if that's important to the heart of God, then as we are apprenticing ourselves after Jesus, then that is going to become more important to us, and it has to be. But we have to be intentional about it, and how to think about it, and how to approach it. But man, I get up in the morning and life starts going.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of things to do. And then we had a kid get sick at school today. And then so, the plans that we had, then you got to leave and go pick them up. And then you got to do all the stuff that comes with that,
Life.
So life just happens. And then there's a lot of church life that happens for all of you. You've got your small group, and you got people that you're calling and trying to stay up with. And then are we organizing this? And how are we going to do this? And what's going to happen? And so even church life can keep you so busy that you forget about the people that God is trying to draw near to him. And so as we follow Jesus, we have to be willing to do that. But I think it's interesting because a lot of times we will think, okay, well, the church is going to do that. Like there's a church service that is just miraculously going to draw people to it, that people are just going to show up. and and Google it, and then they'll walk into the church building and say, "Where's water? Why can't I be baptized?" Or we will expect other people to do it, or that we'll expect maybe that the paid staff of the church are the ones who are supposed to evangelize, and we have this feeling that, okay, I'm in the kingdom, which is awesome, but somebody else has to bring other people in, like that's as if that's somebody else's job,
right.
And it's very easy for us to think that. And I think even in Jesus' day, his disciples kind of felt that too. They were following him. He was the rabbi and he was the teacher, but he was teaching them about what he wanted them to do. And there's a really interesting lesson, I think, that we can take from this very famous story that so many people know, whether they are Jesus followers or not, but the story of the feeding of the 5,000. I actually, I've learned some interesting things from Marty Solomon, and as he talked about this on the Bema podcast, as he was going through the book of Matthew, some interesting things that I thought were really cool. And so I wanted us to look at a little bit of this story today so that we could look at what did Jesus do as he was teaching his disciples about this? And could there be more to this story maybe that we don't always see? So let's set the context a little bit. So John the Baptist has been killed, and Jesus hears about it and finds out that his cousin has been killed. And he's like, I need to get away for a moment. I need a quiet moment. So he and his disciples get in a boat. They go across the Sea of Galilee. They go across the lake. But all the thousands of people run around the lake and chase them. And they're there when they land. And so he's like, I needed a moment, right? I needed to get away. But he gets out and he starts teaching them and healing them. And then there they are. They've been there now for a couple days. And so now what happens? So here's where we're going to pick it up in Matthew chapter 14, verse 15. It says, as evening approached, the disciples came to him and said, this is a remote place and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so that they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food. And Jesus replied, they do not need to go away. You give them something to eat. And so let's just stop right here and look at what Jesus is doing, because you can hear that where the disciples are like, we have no food. Send them away to get some food. And Jesus is like, they don't need to go away. You give them something to eat. Now, how would you feel in that moment? Where here's Jesus, who is the Son of God, and he's telling you that it's your job to go and feed these people. And that's sometimes, how we feel like God should be fixing the world around us. God should be reaching out. Why isn't God doing anything? But many times God's answer is, you give them something to eat. And you need to do this. Oh, ice cream man, go by.
It was our ice cream man.
It was.
Oh, that's so funny.
But here's some of the things that I think are really interesting about this, and this is what Marty talked about, is that in the Jewish mind, in the Hebrew mind, numbers are very significant. And if you look through the scriptures, you can tell that numbers are significant. The number 3, for instance, when can you think of the number 3 being used? When can you think of the number 3 being used?
Think about it with the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit.
True.
Think about it. 3 days he rose from the dead.
3 days he was in the
right?
tomb. Yeah.
So
anybody else have a 3-day thing?
who?
Jonah.
Jonah
Was in the, yeah. So 3 is a big number. 7 is another big number. Why is 7 a big number?
7 is the week of creation.
Right.
Right.
What about 12? Is 12 a big number?
12 is the number of the sons of Jacob, or the tribes of Israel.
The 12 tribes of Israel, right?
And the 12 apostles.
And then the 12 apostles, right? So numbers have a big significance in the scriptures.
Right.
And so in the Jewish mind, because they had studied the Torah and the Old Testament, those numbers meant a lot to them. And so when we see numbers like this, even in the New Testament text, we need to pay attention to what are these numbers representing. And so here, Jesus is, communicating, okay, I want you to give them something to eat. But then in verse 17, it says, we have here only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, they answered. So you got 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Now, the number 5 corresponded with, you have any idea?
The Torah.
I already told you. It's the Torah, right? So it's the first 5 books.
I didn't know that.
It's the first 5 books of the Old Testament. It's the Torah. It's the Pentateuch. And so 5 corresponded to the law. And then the number 2 in the Jewish mind would have corresponded to the 2 tablets that Moses brought down from Mount Sinai with the 10 Commandments on it. And so if there's 5 loaves and 2 fish, what this would be representing, especially in the Jewish mind, is basically the law of God and the law that God gave to his people. And so you've got the law here, and Jesus is saying to his disciples, I want you to take the law. I want you, and I'm interpreting it for you. I'm going to bless it, and then I'm going to give it to you. And then I want you now to distribute it to the people. And then he even had them sit down in groups of 50s and 100. And can you think of any other story where people had to sit down in groups of 50s and 100? Jethro. When Jethro came with Moses, and he was in the Old Testament, and he couldn't figure out how to deal with all the people. And Jethro was like, separate them into groups of 50s and 100, and then they'll be able to bring the hard cases to you. And so Jesus is like 50s and 100. So the Jewish mind is going to think, oh, this is like Moses giving the law. And so Jesus is like the new Moses. And so he sits them down in groups of 50s and 100, and then the disciples just distribute the food, and then they pick up as leftovers basketfuls of food. Yeah. Now, if the point of this story was just to say there was just all this food left over, then they would have said there was just all this food left over. But he was very specific in saying there were 12 basketfuls of food that they picked up.
We didn't read that part.
Would you like to?
Yes,
okay.
I would.
Let's read it. So, verse 19, he directed the people to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. And then he gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the people. They all ate and were satisfied, and the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. And the number of those who ate was about 5,000 men, besides women and children. So you see the details of this and the significance, this idea that 12 basketfuls was picked up, signifying like that when the disciples took the law that Jesus gave them, the teaching that Jesus gave them, and then distributed it to the people, it was enough for everybody. And the 12 signifies all the tribes, everybody. Which is just so cool, when you think about that. Yeah. And so the specifics of this story, for me, to think about that, it just blows my mind. But then when I really think about the fact that Jesus said, I want you to give them something to eat. I want you to go and help people. And Jesus interpreted the law for us. Jesus became the fulfillment of all of the prophecies. Jesus became the sacrifice on the cross for us. Jesus became the embodiment of God, the personification of the divine. He became the Word that came to be with us and dwell with us, God with us. And then he said, now I want you to take this. I want you to take what I've given you, and I want you now to share that with other people. Jesus said he came to seek and to save the lost. And then he said, now I want you to continue my work. You're going to do even greater things than these. There's of course the idea, in John where he says, apart from me, you can do nothing. But then at the same time, then he gives us this task and says, but I want you to go and do this.
Right.
Obviously with him and abiding with him and being with him. But he does give that to us, and then at the Great Commission at the end, go and make disciples of all nations and teach them to obey. Like, this is what he wanted us to do, was to go and spend our lives helping other people.
Yeah, I think the thing I get out of it too, that tension of like, wait, I thought apart from him we could do nothing. It's almost like you get this picture of like we're just going to be carried along,
right?
We can't do anything,
like we're floating.
but the truth is, he wants us to do something,
right.
And he's going to come alongside us, and he's going to help us to do that with that yoke, right? The other thing that I get out of this is just that I think in their mind, because he said, go see what you can get, basically. You give them something to eat, go see what you get.
Right.
They're like, all we got are these 5 loaves and 2 fish, right. It's like, that's all we got. Now we hear all of this incredible stuff about the numbers, but I think the reality of that moment, like, what is this going to do? And 5 loaves and 2 fish wasn't going to go far enough because Jesus hadn't blessed it yet.
Right.
He had to bless it. And when I'm looking at all of my efforts to do that, I'm like, I thought I always have these delusions of grandeur. I really do. Like, I always think, oh, it's going to be like this. Like, when I move, I'm going to be like a sharing machine. I'm going to be sharing my faith wherever I go and inviting people to come to church all the time. And then, I'm just am still me, which is not like that. But it's just my little meager efforts, like with my pumpkin party. God's gonna bless it.
Right.
Jesus will do the blessing.
Right.
I just have to do the collecting, the meager looking part is all I have to do. And
Right.
then he's gonna bless it, and he's gonna make it go way further than I could have, imagined.
Right.
Even with my big imagination.
That's right. So what we really want to encourage all of us in the South Orange County Church to do this week is to go and feed people, is to go and take the message and find somebody that you can share with.
Yeah.
Share, what have you been given? You've been given this hope. You've been given faith. You've been given peace. You've been given answers. You've been given a way to be able to deal with your anxiety and your self-control. You go and you share that with somebody else. And then God will continue to bless that. As we look at the rest of the year, we've got 4 more services like this where you're going to be meeting in your small groups. Bring people to one of those. Tell people, man, this is awesome. You got to come and hang out with my group, or do some kind of a holiday harvest, Thanksgiving, something where you can bring people to.
Or take advantage of what's already going on in your area. And,
Right.
But if it's, because sometimes you can feel a little overwhelmed by
Right.
doing things. But we have so many things to bring people to already.
Right.
We have this regional service that's coming up. We have the Marty Solomon thing. Then we have another regional service in November, if you feel more comfortable that way.
Right.
And then we have, Advent coming up. These are
Right.
big, where we have plenty of things to invite people to every single week.
Right. So let's do what Jesus was teaching his disciples here to do, which was, I'm the word, but I'm giving it to you to distribute. I'm giving it to you to go and share with people. So let's go out and be that for people this week. We also, as we're looking forward to our Advent services and these regional services coming up, and then having the option to start meeting a lot more as a church in the building on Sundays in the new year, we really want to work on just our culture of service, that all of us are coming together on our Sunday gatherings to be able to celebrate God together and be able to offer something to other people. It's like a family dinner. When you call your family into dinner, everybody comes in, somebody's setting the table, somebody's getting the salt, somebody's getting the extra fork that you forgot. And then after somebody's cooking, and afterwards somebody cleans up. Like, everybody participates at the family dinner. And that's how our Sunday gatherings are going to be. Everybody in the South Orange County Church is going to participate in helping make our Sundays great. And so I want you to choose to adopt that mindset that when I come in on Sunday, I'm coming to give. It's not, you're not coming on Sundays to be given to. Our church doesn't exist so that you can have something to benefit from. All of us exist together as a body so that we can continue to hold up the light of Jesus to the rest of the world. And so all of us are coming in together to do that. So we're going to have several volunteer teams and ways to make our Sundays work, whether it is on the music ministry, or on the usher team, or on the greeter team, or on the children's ministry team. There's going to be a lot of ways that all of us can help make our Sundays great. So I sent out an email that kind of goes through all that and gives you a way to be able to sign up.
Your
and
email.
so I want to encourage everybody to look at that and go, how can I help on a Sunday? How can I serve on a Sunday?
How can I help?
And it's not if you're going to serve on a Sunday, it's just where you're going to serve on a Sunday. Now, you may not end up serving every Sunday, but our spirit and our attitude is going to be one of, how can I help? What can I do? And God blesses that spirit. When we come in with a consumer mindset, I believe it blocks the spirit from working a lot of times. And so we want to come in with an attitude of service and how can I help?
Yeah.
So we're really excited about the rest of the year and all that is coming up. And I just want to thank you guys for being patient and flexible and trusting, and all the things that we've done so far this year. I'm really excited about, and I'm excited about all that is to come. If somebody sent you this video and you want to find out more, you want to get some information about us, you can send us an email at socchurch@occhurchofchrist.com. That's socchurch@occhurchofchrist.com, and we'll get back to you. If you have any other questions about stuff, you can send us an email there, or most of you got my email and my phone number. You can just call me directly. But we're excited about all this, right?
Yes.
The fall's going to be great.
Already is.
All right, we'll see you guys next week.